In a dynasty famed for powerful conquerors, cunning rulers, and fearsome warriors, Sultan Mustafa I remains an enigma. A ruler who defied tradition and took the throne not once, but twice. Today we unravel the story of a sultan thrust into power, torn by the shadows of palace intrigue, and haunted by his own mind. Was Mustafa a madman or a tragic pawn? Join me as we dive into the extraordinary life of Sultan Mustafa I, whose reign would reveal the dark undercurrents of the Ottoman Empire and the merciless nature of absolute power. Mustafa was born in 1591 into the Ottoman court, a world where loyalty was a fleeting concept, and danger lurked within the very walls meant to protect him. As the son of Sultan Mehmed III, Mustafa was raised amidst the strict, cloistered customs of palace life. But unlike his forefathers who were groomed for power, Mustafa was kept isolated, shut away from the world beyond Topkapi Palace's gilded gates. From an early age, Mustafa was marked by an unusual fragility. Raised mostly by the women of the harem, he was protected but never fully prepared for the responsibilities of rulership. This was by design, as Mehmed I's rule had implemented strict safeguarding measures to prevent internal strife. All male heirs not directly in line for the throne were confined, sometimes for life, in what was known as the kathis or the cage, a series of quarters deep within the palace. Imagine growing up in a cage, surrounded by opulence but stripped of freedom, interaction, and any form of control. This was Mustafa's reality, a world of routine and silence, where the line between protection and imprisonment blurred. Over time, the confinement of Ottoman princes led to deep psychological scars, and Mustafa's own mind began to fray under this relentless isolation. But Mustafa's confinement was more than just personal, it was a matter of state policy. In a time when Ottoman sultans had grown increasingly wary of internal rebellions, the practice of imprisoning possible rivals became a grim necessity to preserve the sultanate's fragile stability. Some believe that this psychological strain left Mustafa vulnerable to mental breakdowns even before he ever tasted power. In 1617, fate took an unexpected turn. Sultan Ahmed I, Mustafa's cousin and the ruling sultan, died suddenly of typhus. Ahmed's death left the empire in a precarious position. For the first time in Ottoman history, the empire faced a succession crisis. Ahmed's sons were too young, and thus Mustafa. A sheltered, fragile figure unused to court life was thrust onto the throne. Many in the court believed Mustafa to be an unfit ruler, an odd choice even, and yet Mustafa took up the crown. His mental state was already in question, and as sultan, his behavior grew increasingly unpredictable. Mustafa was rumored to suffer from bouts of paranoia, ordering servants to check palace fountains for hidden fish or barring windows to keep out unseen threats. Yet it wasn't just his mental state that destabilized his reign. Mustafa was under the tight control of his mother, the Valide Sultan Halim, who acted as his regent. Advisors and officials feared her influence over him and worried about the fate of the empire. For some, Mustafa's rule was merely a temporary solution, a bridge to Ahmed's young sons reaching maturity. Within the palace, Mustafa's rule attracted powerful figures vying for control. Among them was Qasem Sultan, the widow of Ahmed I and a formidable figure in her own right. With her sons too young to rule, she became a rival to Mustafa's mother, Valide Sultan Halimi. Qasem viewed Mustafa's mental state as an opportunity to increase her influence and safeguard her son's eventual claim to the throne. This struggle between Qasem and Halime brought Topkapi Palace to a boiling point, with alliances forming and shifting overnight. Some historians believe that Qasem deliberately fueled rumors of Mustafa's instability, hoping it would hasten his deposition. As the empire wavered, whispers of a coup echoed through the palace corridors. After a reign that lasted only a few months, the pressure to remove Mustafa reached a climax. The court, fearing for the empire's stability, orchestrated his deposition. In 1618, Mustafa was dethroned and sent back to his confinement within the palace. But unlike his predecessors, Mustafa was kept alive. His perceived insanity made him a non-threatening figure. Mustafa's return to the cafes marked a turning point in his mental health. After tasting freedom, only to have it cruelly taken away, his condition reportedly worsened. Days bled into nights, with Mustafa sometimes pacing endlessly, mumbling to himself. Yet as the years passed, he remained unaware of the events unfolding in the outside world, trapped in an endless state of seclusion. In a twist of fate, Mustafa was once again thrust onto the throne in 1622, 4 years after his initial deposition. The palace was in chaos following the assassination of his nephew, Osman II. This violent coup destabilized the court, and with no clear successor, the officials turned to Mustafa once more. But Mustafa was no longer the same man. His return to power was marked by increasingly erratic behavior. He became deeply paranoid, lashing out at servants and advisors, unable to trust even those closest to him. According to some accounts, he demanded that troops prepare for non-existent battles and accused his own advisors of conspiring against him. His mother, Valid Sultan Halimi, once again attempted to steady his rule, but even she couldn't shield him from the growing resentment among the empire's elites. Mustafa's second reign was fragile, haunted by the trauma of his first deposition, and characterized by a deteriorating mental state that further strained his hold on power. By 1623, it became clear that Mustafa's rule was unsustainable. The Janissaries, once his greatest supporters, grew disillusioned, and a new coup was set in motion. Mustafa was deposed for a second time, replaced by his young nephew, Murad IV. This time, Mustafa's deposition marked the end of his reign for good. Historians still debate whether Mustafa's mental state was a product of genuine madness or the years of isolation and manipulation he endured. In a palace governed by political intrigue, Mustafa was a tragic figure, a man who wore the crown twice but was truly a ruler of nothing. In the end, Sultan Mustafa I's life serves as a haunting reminder of the Ottoman Empire's perilous blend of power and isolation. His story is one of confinement, a ruler trapped both by his mind and by the ruthless hands of those who surrounded him. So was Mustafa I a mad sultan, or merely a victim of palace intrigue? His life leaves us pondering the limits of power and the fragility of those who wield it. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the shadowy corridors of Topkapi Palace. If Mustafa's story captivated you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more stories from history's most mysterious figures. Let us know in the comments, do you believe Mustafa was truly mad, or was he a pawn in a brutal game of control? Motivated by stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more epic tales of history's greatest figures and moments. Hit the bell icon to never miss an adventure into the past.